Saludos, también estoy en Phoenix, Arizona para la convención de cómics. Vamos a ver qué encontramos, es la primera combe grande a la que voy en Estados Unidos. Espero ver, aparte de mucha gente, muchos artistas. Vamos a ver qué encontramos. Hi, we are with Alex Decampi, writer of Grindhouse. Alex, I would like to ask you just one question. As a writer, what is the most difficult part of creating a character?
Tough. I think making them unique, giving them their own way of speaking, because if you're lazy, they just speak like me. And so you have to think more about how the rhythm of their speech would be different, how they would use different slang, how they would talk like a unique individual. And so that for me is the hardest part.
Okay.
Creating an original voice.
That's very hard to achieve.
Yes.
I'm a writer also. Thank you very much, Alex.
You're welcome. Good luck with your blog.
Thanks. I'm here with Brian Pulido. You are the creator of Lady Death.
That's true. I am the creator of Lady Death, Brian Pulido.
Sure. Brian, I have just one question to you. You are also a great pin-up artist. There are a lot of pin-up artists everywhere. Every illustrator does pin-ups. But what's the key to making a really cool, a successful pin-up?
The key to a successful pin-up are two major items. The first one is composition. The composition should be smooth, elegant, like a woman's body. And then the second element, maybe there's three elements. The second element is the anatomy. The anatomy must be perfect, must be posed in a very sensual manner, very comfortable looking. And then the third element, obviously, is the expression. You have to communicate a human emotion that connects with the viewer. So I think those three elements make for a very good pinup.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm here with Dan Jurgens. He's a penciler, but also he is a writer. And I will ask him just one question. So Dan, which one is more important on a comic book, the art or the script?
I actually have always thought that it's the art that gets people to pick up a book for the first time. That if they're in the comic store, they don't know how a book reads, but they do know whether or not they like the look at it of it as they pick it up and page through it. So I think it is the art that first attracts people to the book. I think it is then the script that kind of keeps people. But more importantly, it is having the same writer and artist on a consecutive number of issues so they can build a storyline and build that visual voice that readers want. And that's what builds a book and keeps people together. So yeah, it ends up being about 50-50.
Great. Thank you very much, Dan.
You're
welcome. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yep.
Mine. Okay, I'm here with James Obar. He's an artist, a comic artist, and I'm going to ask him just one question. James, there are a lot of questions I would like to ask you, but I'm going to ask you just one.
Okay.
And this is about comic writing. What's your best advice for professional comic writers when working with different pencilers or artists?
You have to remember that it's a visual medium and know when to shut up and let the picture tell the story. Most writers feel the need to put a word balloon or a caption in every single panel, and it's just not necessary. So that my best advice is, if it doesn't need words, leave it out.
Okay, thank you very much, James.
You're welcome.
It's I'm here with Kevin Maguire, and I'm going to ask him one question. Kevin,
Yes.
every professional comic artist, as writer or as inker or penciler, has to deal with an editor. How do you manage an editor rejection over your work?
How would I handle that?
Yeah.
Well, I like most things, I guess it depends on the editor and what the rejection is. If most of the time, if they're rejecting something, there's a pretty valid reason for it, and as long as it's articulated that you can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, it's like, oh, okay, all right, I understand. That makes sense. I mean, on the other hand, if it's a creative rejection in terms of like ideas and stuff like that, well, then you have a discussion with the editor and see if you can't convince them of your point of view. Ultimately, for the most part, the editor is going to win because he's the one writing the paycheck, or at least the publisher is.
Sure.
So, it depends on the editor. It depends on the relationship you have with the editor, and the strength of both your arguments.
Great. Thank you very much, then.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Oh. Hi, we are with Larry Weltz, creator of Cherry, and we are going to ask him just one question. Is it okay?
Okay.
Larry, when you're writing an adult-oriented story, despite the element of nudity or sex, what's the most important thing on the adult-oriented story? Aside sex.
Well, there has to be a story. There has to be a joke of some sort, because I'm not just doing just sex books. It's satire and parody, and so there has to be something funny. That's why the sex being in it usually is in some sort of inappropriate fashion in some sort of story that makes it funny. So it must be funny. Got to be a joke.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bueno, hay mucha gente, hay muchos artistas. Está muy padre la convención, no me quejo. Creo que una pregunta les va a gustar mucho. No me despido, es un intermedio. Vamos a seguir a ver qué encontramos. I left his at home. Algo que no puede faltar en las convenciones es los artistas de televisión y cine que son parte de la cultura pop, que traen mucha gente. En lo particular, pues ya pueden ver que la lista de nombres es mucha, no todos están presentes, pero pues parece que la gente tampoco está haciendo mucha fila para algunos de los que están. Es la hora de la comida, ya hace hambre. Vamos a seguir viendo, a ver qué más encontramos. Okay, I'm here with Marc Andreyko. He's the writer of Nightbreed. Marc, I would like to know, as a writer, what's the most challenging part of adapting a previously created universe, as Nightbreed, into a new ongoing series?
Well, probably just being faithful to the voice of the original writer. You know, Clive wrote and directed the movie as well as writing the novel. So you want the new book, because this is all new stories, to be faithful to the tone and the world that he created. So that's always a challenge. But I've been a fan of the book and the movie for 20 years, and had been bugging the publisher when they got the rights to Clive Barker for 3 years. Every time I would see the publisher, I'd say, I want to do Nightbreed. So I have a deep love for the material as a fan, as well as wanting to do it as a writer. So it's just doing your research and creating stuff that's honest to my voice, but is also tonally honest to the world that's been created.
Great. Thank you very much, Marc.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Hi, I'm with Michael Dipascale, and he's the cover artist of Crossed. And also he's the painter on Robert Red Charlie. And I would like to ask Michael just one question. Michael, when choosing a concept or an idea for a cover, what's your process of creation? How does the idea comes to you?
You have to think of what's the most brave thing someone could do to another person. If all inhibitions were taken away, what is the worst thing that you would do to somebody? And that's basically your starting point. And then once you get an idea in your head, you just kind of sketch it out. Just try to figure out, just how horrible you can make it. So
sure,
it's tough. It's not something that you can constantly do. I know every once in a while I need to break away from it, and I do some other things. But yeah, you really have to put yourself in a strange position to do a cover like that.
And do you have any suggestion from the writer?
Usually, no, not very much. Most of your covers, you just find out from the editor that you'll need like a certain amount. He says maybe I need 3 or 4 for conventions or something, and then you just go from there. Usually if it's nuts enough, he okays it. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
See you later.
See ya.
I'm here with Mike Barron, creator of Nexus, and I would like to ask him just one question. Nexus has been around since 1982, and it's a lot of time. Nexus is your brainchild, okay? Every one of us as comic creators have brainchilds, have these projects we really love and care, and I would like to ask you, how did you do to ground that idea and make sure the passion or the anxiety to make it happen doesn't overcome you?
Well, initially, I started with a concept, and the concept was a man who was forced by his dreams to execute mass murderers. Once I created that, the personality of the character took over. Nexus became a real person to me, and when he becomes real to the creator, the character itself dictates the direction he wants the story to go. I think if you really know your characters, they start writing themselves. And Nexus has been writing itself all these years. I'm just the medium.
Okay. So you are letting the character to gain life of its own.
Yes, I asked myself, what would Nexus do? And then I think about it, and that dictates the story. Of course, there are certain constants. There have to be mass murderers for him to execute, and there has to be the source of both his power and his curse, which is this insane alien that gives him the power to do whatever he wants, but insists that he use it to execute mass murderers.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. I'm here with Tony Moore, and I'm going to ask him one question, and only one. Tony, there is a lot of people, artists, trying to break into the comic book scene or industry. Is there any advice or something you can point out that is very important to break through when you are a new penciler or writer?
You know, a couple things. One, you have to love it more than you can fathom loving any other job you could manage. You know, I always say if you can think of some other thing you can do with your life, you should maybe go do that thing. Because I think to succeed in comics, you have to do it because you can't imagine what else you would be doing with your life. You have to. It's like a sickness, and you have to be eaten up with it. But you know, and I think you know, being true to yourself is a big thing. It's kind of a cliche, but you know, it's true. I mean, people respond to authenticity and passion. You know, readers will latch on to something that feels like a real person made it versus something that was kind of made up to pander to an audience or something like that. You know, you can't manufacture that. You just have to kind of tell what's true and be true to yourself. And then, you know, just never give up. I mean, you know, there's, as far as getting into the comics industry, there's 1,000 ways to do it. You know, you can do submissions and talk to editors and all that stuff. You know, personally, I did independent comics first. I came up through doing indie stuff, and I feel like that's probably the best thing you can show. Like, the best thing you can show an editor as like a business card is a comic book that you've done yourself, because it shows them that they don't have to hold your hand, that you know how to do it and you will do it, and you know, that basically you know how to see the project through to the end, and editors like that. So if you're looking to get jobs from companies, showing them that you have made your own books is probably the single most effective thing you can show. But you know, there's, like I said, there's 1,000 ways to do it. That's the way I did it, and I recommend it for other people too, because you know, you'd be practicing anyway, so you might as well be building something in the meantime, and you own it, you know, and it might become, you know, your thing, you know, for the rest of your life. Who knows? So, you know, yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Good luck.
Enjoy your con. I'm here with Whilce Portacio, and I'm going to ask him just one question. And this is the question. You are a very well-known penciler. What's your best advice for the newers or the new comic pencilers that are trying to break up on the comic business?
One of the best advice I can give is to study, to look, and to examine everything. Get into the habit of everywhere you go, whether you're drawing or not, whether you're just hanging around with friends or having dinner or just on a bus or in a car, everything that you see, every girl's face that you see is beautiful, every man's face that you see is handsome or interesting. Anybody and anything that you see is interesting, study. Get into the habit of studying them and trying to memorize them. Because the biggest part of drawing, especially in comics, is, yes, there's Google and you could search. Sure. But the quickest way to get your deadlines is to be able to do it straight from your head. So the more time that you spend just studying everything, knowing what a cockroach looks like, knowing what a chair looks like, knowing what a building, different buildings in different cities look like. If you can pull that out of your head right away, then you'll survive longer and quicker in comics and in other fields that are illustrative based. Because again, the more things that you can do from your head, the more better jobs you'll get, the quicker you'll be able to finish your deadlines, and the longer career that you'll have. So yes, I advise just studying with your eyes and your brain and your head, just studying and studying and studying.
Thank you very much. I'm here with Yvonne Navarro, writer, and I want to ask her just one question. Yvonne, where do you get your ideas?
You know, that's really a question that every writer just kind of dreads because there's no answer for it. I don't know where they get my ideas. They just come. A lot of times I just ask a what if question. What if, you know, the guy over there with the beard suddenly turned and bit Clara in the neck? Really, she's not listening to me. I mean, you can just ask any kind of a what if question and you can make a huge story out of it. So that's where it comes from. It comes from the what if question.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Así termina mi visita a Phoenix, Arizona, a la convención de cómics. Me gustó mucho. No me arrepiento de esta experiencia de ninguna manera. Estuvo muy padre. Me agrada compartirlo con ustedes. Y pues solamente me queda volver a agarrar carretera. Son 3 horas hasta la frontera. Pero vale mucho la pena la visita. Espero más adelante poder regresar. Y por lo pronto, a volar.